Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in a game between ParanOid and iNcontrol. This is game 2 in a best of 3 series. Currently ParanOid up 1-0 in this best of 3 matchup, and ParanOid spawning as the red Zerg here at the 3 o'clock position. Meanwhile, iNcontrol spawning as the blue Protoss player here at the left hand side of the map at the 9 o'clock position. So this is going to be cross spawns, full cross spawns on Metalopolis, and I am looking forward to this matchup. I will say that this is part of patch 1.3.2, so all the most recent changes have not been updated as, I am fighting off a little bit of a cold, and now iNcontrol making his way out with this one probe already, and we'll be scouting out the far cross spawning location first. We'll see if another probe tries to come across over here, and whether iNcontrol will figure out where his opponent has in fact spawned. Now, ParanOid had a very, very strong economically during the early portion of the game, but iNcontrol able to come back and effectively use his forces and force fields in order to take the game earlier, or in the mid and late games on Shakura's Plateau. You can see currently the probe still wandering around. Extractor finally going to be placed down here, so iNcontrol knows that it is not going to be a low ground hatchery at all, but instead a spawning pool followed by an extractor followed by a spawning pool. Metabolic research going to be started up in just a moment. iNcontrol is warping in a gateway, so it is going to be a gateway first. We are not going to have any proxy cannons this time around, as iNcontrol just leaves the probe down over here, making sure he knows when his opponent has in fact tried to go for a fast hatchery. ParanOid about halfway done with his spawning pool. We are seeing more and more chrono boosting coming in, and also iNcontrol deciding to warp in a pylon here. It makes a lot of sense. You're able to warp in units much closer into your opponent's base from this location, and then you can actually put a lot more pressure early on. We should be getting a Cybernetics core here, a Zealot trained up to be able to fend off any of those units as they try to come in. There's that Cybernetics core that I was talking about just moments ago. We should be getting the Zealot as well, as he does have to be very careful about early Zergling harassment, especially with that metabolic boost about to be completed. And it looks like ParanOid only mining with 2 harvesters instead of 3, so he will be significantly delayed in trying to start that metabolic boost research, finally transferring in a 3rd over there. And then he should be backing off in just a little bit of time as well. iNcontrol does have a pylon currently warping in. I believe the Zerglings will just start pecking away at it. It should just get cancelled, but it will do a good job of trying to delay that expansion for a little while, maybe 5-10 seconds at most, as that hatchery now comes into play. We are getting a gateway, a gateway now chrono boosting out a sentry, as we are also getting that warp gate research as well. So sentries do take 42 seconds instead of 37 seconds. That is one of the main differences in 1.33 versus 1.32, as an Overlord now quickly spots out this pylon here. We are getting an additional gateway, 2 additional gateways as well, so iNcontrol may be trying to go for a 3-gate or a 4-gate pressure in just a little bit of time. He does have sentries, continuing to get a lot of sentries, and this is a very common style of play for Protoss against Zerg, as the sentries, the longer they stay in play, the better they are. And because they also have a base attack, they're able to fend off any Zergling harassment, perhaps even getting down a force field and getting some early Zergling kills. One Zergling now just still wandering around the map still, as an Overlord looking to position itself up in just a moment. A Queen already nearby, ready for that hatchery to come online or finish morphing in, as ParanOid only running off of 2 queens so far. Now, I do not see any indications of a Stargate at this time. He could try to go for a Stargate, but no, instead going for a 4th gateway. And that means that we will be seeing a lot of gateway units for the next 5 minutes or so in this matchup. We are also going into a Roach Warren and Zerglings as well. iNcontrol may try to make his way down, perhaps try to set up an expansion here in just a moment. You can see the probe already getting in position, as there was a proxy pylon here, which will get cancelled. The one probe now trying to run away doesn't look like it will be successful at all, as a Nexus now being warped in here on the low ground. It is going to be 2 base play versus 2 base play. Spine Crawler's already coming in by ParanOid, so ParanOid wants to make sure he does not have to fend off against a very large group of units. iNcontrol already has that Warp Gate research, now warping in additional units as well. More sentries down over here, so that is a lot of sentries that he can fight back with. And now the Zerglings may try to walk in, and oh, no force field in time at all. The Zerglings will be able to just take a look around on the inside of the space, perhaps see that 4th gateway that needs to upgrade into a Warp Gate in just a moment. Sentry is now coming over to join in and offer a particle beam as a disruption beam as a final attack there, as another gateway now morphing into a warp gate. We should be seeing a robotics facility sometime soon, but no. We are just still getting a lot of sentries and now going to be running off of 5 gates. So a 5-gate push may be in order, as 5-gate push off of 2 base allows you to just train up a lot of units very, very easily. Zergling now trying to run away as more units still coming in over here. It looks like the Zerglings will be able to walk in this ramp in just a moment, and that's going to be a bit of an issue there as the Zerglings, warping in a Zealot just in time. The Zerglings now trying to fight back and, unable to do so. And now, however, moving their position just a little bit, and now the force field going to cause a little bit of problem on their own. The Zealots now trying to make their way over, and the Zerglings are just going to be an annoyance and a nuisance inside this base, getting a couple quick kills on some probes as the probes are now transferred to that low ground expansion. A decent number of probes. Harvester count 48 drones versus 29 probes. And ParanOid, sitting with such a strong economic lead, should be able to just macro up very, very easily. As long as he takes a 3rd base during this time of pressure, he should be able to just punish iNcontrol. But iNcontrol does have a lot of sentries, with 9 sentries out. You can see the tunneling claws and burrow already being researched as the hatchery now coming into play. So ParanOid doing exactly what needs to get done to fight off against a large number of sentries, especially since there are no observers out. With no observers, and only a photon cannon to act and offer detection, the units may be able to just crawl past this location here. The photon cannon does about 15 damage a second would be my best calculations. Roaches regenerate 10 damage a second, and with their base armor, I think the roaches could actually sneak by there and get up that ramp. There is, however, another pylon coming in, so that will make it a little bit more difficult as the units now make their way out. A large number of sentries. More units should be warping in alongside here in just a moment. You can see the gateways and the warp gates reinforcing units very, very easily. Not quite sure what he's waiting for. Perhaps waiting for additional resources. As I take a look at the income tab, another stalker now coming in. Stalkers, sentries, and zealots just wandering around the map. Meanwhile, ParanOid doing a good job keeping up with a very large army so far, and he has a very strong economic lead, 56 harvesters compared to 41. But he hasn't been able to, or we saw this in the last game, and he wasn't able to really capitalize on his significant economy yet. So that is a bit of a surprise that he's not able to capitalize on his economy anytime soon, as the sentries and stalkers are now making their way out. I hate to say this, but as a Zerg player, you really need Ultralisks in order to counter the force fields of those sentries. The massive units able to bust open and break down all of those sentries very early on, very easily. And now the sentries are on the move once more. So the queens are down over here as well, just laying in wait, trying to get as much spawn larva as possible, trying to get a very strong army going. You can see now that iNcontrol has the larger army at this stage, a decent-sized army of sentries and zealots. Army supply 45 compared to 48, but worker supply definitely in favor of ParanOid. But those workers do not make for a very good army at all. Stalkers or roaches now trying to make their way out, gonna get some damage onto some stalkers, but the stalkers able to back off, and now a force field has been laid down. More creep tumors need to be placed down as well, as ParanOid knows that his opponent does have an observer, as he was able to spot a couple of those creep tumors and getting destroyed. Roaches now making their way out as well. You can see about a 1,400 resource difference between the two players, as ParanOid needs to get his weapons and armor upgrades. He is currently doing that, also getting an Overseer as well, but he does not have a Hydralisk in order to shut down that observer. So that is going to be very curious as to how he's going to stop iNcontrol's army. One Zergling now going to be able to just simply run by, spot the Nexus as it's currently being warped in, and Zergling just falls apart to a large number of stalkers. There is an Immortal as well. The Immortal is upgraded 1-1. So armor upgrade and weapons upgrade. I'm looking for a Twilight Council, but I don't see it just quite yet. No Twilight Council. Unable to get the level 2 weapons upgrade. iNcontrol currently supply locked, unable to train up a Colossus here. He needs to get in an additional pylon, and he doesn't look like he realizes that he is in fact supply locked at this stage. Finally getting up another pylon and another gateway there. Overlords of ParanOid in position, and now ParanOid needs to perhaps just macro up and get as many units as possible. Mass roaches, however, are not going to work out, especially against the static defense of iNcontrol. iNcontrol having so many photon cannons here, and the stalkers now making their way over. A force field now coming in. Roaches being forced to try to pull away, but ParanOid just looking absolutely horrible at this stage. Photon cannons getting more damage onto those roaches. The roaches do have a base of 2 armor now, able to absorb, only taking 18 damage every 1.25 seconds. So that is about 10 damage, or a slightly less, or slightly more than 10 damage a second, the regeneration rate on a roach. Level 2 missile upgrades and ventral sacks coming in, so a drop more than likely. As you can see, overlords are nearby here, just spawning creep. Not exactly sure what ParanOid wanted to do with this. Perhaps he'll stop with an overlord for a split second and then prevent his opponent from being able to warp in any, or not warp in, be able to warp in any buildings. Yeah, warp in, but not warp in units, warp in buildings, as the roaches testing the back door once again. And ParanOid not working all too well. He's trying to use brute force in a battle where his opponent has been using static defense and casters to fend off the attack, and brute force never works out all too well, especially against an army that has Immortals and now Colossus joining in on that fight. Spire about to come online, or now being started, as an infestation pit also being started as well. Layer tech, sorry, Hive Tech about to come in, as well as perhaps we will see a tech to tier 3 and effective use of Broodlords, or perhaps even Ultralisk. The Roach is able to snipe down one of those buildings, taking down another Stalker there. Mass Roaches dealing so much damage, as the Colossi do not have extended thermal lance range just quite yet. Roaches are battling it out. Some of those Roaches just on hiatus in the back, and now need to perhaps focus down some of those other Stalkers and Sentries. Dealing it out, going after unit at a time, focusing down the Sentries very, very smartly. And you can see the total resources of 4,000 versus 5,300, but ParanOid does have a superior economy, sitting at 64 drones compared to 58. Spire about to be completed, level 2 carapace upgrades, but a dark shrine also being added as well. ParanOid now setting up this additional base over here at the 6 o'clock location, as the roaches are going to be charging in all together and perhaps trying to regather themselves as another expansion in the center portion of the map. ParanOid is starting to stretch himself thin, though. He doesn't have that large of an army, only about a 5,500 resource army compared to a fifth, or oh wow, we actually have iNcontrol with a larger army if you take account into gas. So a 6,200 army versus now a 58. So yeah, slightly larger by iNcontrol, even though he has less bases that he's running from at this time. Dark Templars leading the way. I do not see any Overseers, so the Dark Templar is going to perhaps get some damage onto those units. The Dark Templars, no, simply bypassing and going to go into drones instead. As the battle now comes in, the Roaches, or the Force Fields now coming into play. The Colossi sitting on that high ground and doing a great job, as they're able to just use that extended thermal lance range and get a lot of damage onto those Roaches. The Roaches now trying to fight back in. The Immortals finally able to join in on the fight, as the Roaches getting within combat range. And now ParanOid once again in trouble. He lost a lot of positioning in that battle. The Roaches are now once again in full retreat. More units are coming in, and I believe this hatchery will get taken down very easily. Immortal trying to finish off some more units. Roaches rallied into the wrong location and simply just falling apart once again. Overlords now backing off, as ParanOid losing the center high yield mineral expansion, and a couple of drones, as well as the drones now coming back, and ParanOid not working too smart or too well in this battle, losing a lot of units and a lot of resources pretty much needlessly at this stage. A 4,000 resource difference in terms of losses, and now you can see an even larger difference, 1,500 mineral, 1,100 gas difference. Between these two players, a 2,600 resource difference overall. An Overseer was able to, I believe, clear out the Dark Templars over here, as we are now down to 61 drones by ParanOid. ParanOid really did stretch himself a little bit too thin, and because of that, he is now on the receiving end of a lot of losses. The Overlords desperately trying to retreat, as well as now more and more Colossi being added into this army, and now a main battle happening over here. ParanOid using just mass Stalkers or mass Roaches to try to engage, shut down multiple cannons, taking down another building over here, and now going to perhaps try to take down the Colossus. One Colossus already down, another Colossus dangerously low on hit points. But iNcontrol aggressively blinking with those Stalkers, able to force those units to once again fall back. Now, 61 drones, 71 probes, army-wise. iNcontrol definitely in the lead, 165 over 192 compared to 148 and 2,000. We are going to be getting some Baneling bombing runs as those Roaches are going to be trying to engage. I do not see the movement speed upgrade at all, as the Zealots now coming down over here to try to put some pressure. The hatchery already down to 82 hit points, and it looks like the Zealots just gonna simply walk up that ramp here and get destroyed without much really happening. You can see iNcontrol opting to go for and establish his nexus, instead transferring some probes over and trying to stay ahead in the economic portion of the game. He is slightly ahead at this time. 400 total resources every minute, or 500 if you account for gas as well. Roaches still scampering about. The Roaches are upgraded 2-2, and 12 more Roaches continually being added once more, as there are a lot of photon cannons. So iNcontrol, a professional player who's not afraid to use static defense and has been using static defense fairly effectively. Also losing an Overseer there. Overlords now on the move. Perhaps they're going to get some damage. Another Overseer, 2 Overseers in this group, as the Roaches now trying to battle it out. The Roaches now need to get within position. The Overlords now trying to come in and trying to do a bombing run. And it looks the Banelings are going to be dropped here, but the Banelings are not dealing that much damage against this army here. You can see a lot of damage was dealt, but the Colossi very much well protected on the backside of that base, or of that ball. And with a range of 8 or 9, excuse me, those Colossi able to stay alive. And now, with such a dominant force and nothing to really counter the Colossus, I believe this expansion will fall in just a matter of seconds, as it only has 160 hit points. Roach is once again trying to meet and greet that army, but is unable to really do anything about it besides get toasted. So ParanOid losing 2-0 to iNcontrol, and game 1 on Shakura's Plateau, game 2 on Metalopolis. Very interesting in that a lot of people say that that Metalopolis and Shakura's Plateau actually favors Zerg. So iNcontrol doing a great job and able to just win on these maps, even though some people say it is a Zerg favored map. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay between ParanOid and iNcontrol. I will be posting up an anti-spoiler video. Thanks for watching.